What's up guys, Top Tier Yu-Gi-Oh here, and today we have Alen Dekhanov from Ocean View Gaming here to help us with the Pendulum Magician FTK. He's going to show us exactly how to do it two different ways. We're going to do it with Foolish Burial, a Sorcerer, high scale, and then any blank pendulum card. It could be Purple Poison, it could be anything. And then a second way with Instant Fusion and the same requirements but with one extra blank. And again, these can be any dark pendulum monster. They also could be Astrograph or Harmonizing, but we're not going to use those because using them makes the combo like 10,000 times easier. You guys can probably figure it out. And then after that, we're going to talk about when to use our hand traps and what are the best things to stop and when the best times to stop them are. And so let's go ahead and get into it.
Alright, spoiler alert, we're also not going to use Joker because that also makes the combo too easy. Alright guys, so the reason I thought this is a cool video to make is because this is a deck that's very prevalent in the meta right now. I mean, I played against it 5 of my 8 rounds at this last ARG I went to, and I just think it's so important that just like you know how the combo works and what hand trap to use to stop it if you even are lucky enough to have a hand trap. Because there were just so many times where people ogred or veilered the wrong thing, and it was just like, okay, cool, I still do 8,000 to you, so you still lose. So I'm gonna walk us through the combo, and hopefully we can get a better idea of like what to stop. So I guess also if you want to play the deck, this also works for that. So with this hand, you obviously want to start with Foolish Burial, so you can dump Darkwurm. For those who don't know, Darkwurm only gets its effect in grave if you control no monsters. So we special summon it from the grave, and we get a free low scale to our hand, the scale 0. At this point, we want to put the chronograph in the in the pendulum zone. Uses effect to pop itself to summon one of the garnets from deck. The one that corresponds is Time Gazer in this case. And then we're going to make our Electrum. And then Electrum in this case is going to add the 13 scale. The reason you want to add 13 scale on Astrograph is because when you have the 13 and the 0 in the scales, it searches Instant Fusion. And we'll get to how we get there in a second. Now, at this point, you do have complete scales, so all you have to do is add your scales, and then you pendulum summon. Now, it's very important you do not pendulum summon the Darkwurm, because for this combo to work, you need to use one of the gate's monster effects to pop itself and another card you control, your high scale. That way, when you pop themselves, they go to the extra deck, and you summon Darkwurm. His other effect will activate where if he's destroyed as a monster, he'll put himself in the scale. At this point, now you can search Instant Fusion. So what we would do is we would pop them both, and we're gonna add Instant Fusion to our hands. And then you use Darkwurm and Purple Poison to make your first starting.
You have to use Darkwurm and Time Gazer. This would be the ones that both have Electromite spin points.
Oh yeah, good point. And we Instant Fusion for the stupid girl that should be banned. Now, the reason this combo is interesting and the reason why it has to have a sorcerer is we still have not used Electrum's effect. So if you have any other blank pendulum monster, you can obviously extend, but in this situation, you would inflict for 500, you would Venom copy Nightingale to burn for 4,000, and then use Electromite's effect to pop the Venom, to add back the Chrono to hand, or actually any normal summon if you had a normal summon to make Electrum. But in this case, we didn't use a normal summon. We get back Chrono, and then draw like any free card, and then Chrono summons himself back, and then we just tribute these to make a second Venom and burn from their 4,000. And this is like the bare minimum. We had to do some weird things to even get here. So if your hand has Astro, Harmonizing, other pendulum cards, you could draw like something off Electrum to extend the combo. Like, I mean, it can be pretty much anything, and that's the crazy part about it. Like Foolish Burial, it just is one of the best starters in this deck. Like, it's actually mind-blowing. Now, for this combo, it's if you just hard open the Instant Fusion. Now, it's less about what the other cards are and more about what the end result is. And the end result is you need 4 Dark Pendulum monsters and Instant Fusion. So even if you like maybe have Harmonizing instead of these 2 or like something else, as long as you get to those dark monsters, like it really doesn't matter how you do it. So with this hand, we would start out by using the chronograph effect to pop himself, to summon Time Gazer, normal summon any pendulum monster, to get Electrum. Electrum in this case, because we don't need the 13 scale to search Instant Fusion because we just hard opened it, we're gonna put Astro just so we can get the advantage and have more pendulum monsters to pendulum summon. Now we're going to scale Black Fang, and then we're going to use Electromite's effect to destroy Black Fang, to add back Astro, and then this is mandatory, so we chain link 1, chain link 2, summon the Astro, and we search a Black Fang from our decks. Now at this point, we have complete scales, and now we have access to pendulum monsters in extra deck. So this is actually really key. We have to Instant Fusion first before doing anything to make the Independent Nightingale, burn for 500, and then we link someone with these two to make Zephyr Metaltron that are over here. And then now we can pendulum summon any of these dark monsters from extra deck, and then 2 make Venom, and then these 2 make Venom, and there you go. We just burnt 4,000 again. Like, I can't stress how mind-blowingly consistent this combo is. In the end, you just need Instant Fusion or Foolish Burial or even Darkwurm in some hands. Your hand has to get a little bit better for Darkwurm, but if you have Instant Fusion or Foolish Burial and like any 4 pendulum monsters, that's almost always the FTK. Like, it's ridiculous how consistent it is. And even if you don't open either of these two and your hand is just like pendulum monsters, you're still making Vortex, Naruto, or Tornado Dragon, or Nightmare, Baguska, like pretty consistently, which is kind of scary to think about. Alright, so now I want to get to like the hand trap part. Kind of the two more like less thought involving hand traps are these two, where as soon as they add something with like Astrograph or they add something of Duelist Alliance where they desires, then maybe we just drop Droll. Droll is kind of less of a factor because unless you're playing Trickstars, you're probably not maining Droll. And then once they FTK you and you know what they're playing, you're going to be signing Droll out for Cherries and Ogre as like something better that actually stops them than just stalls the problem, because they're still going to have all their cards if you don't kill them on your next turn. And Cherries is also pretty obvious because as soon as they get any... Actually, I do want to mention, Cherries is actually very good against this deck, and if your deck can afford the main deck space, I would consider maining Cherries in this current meta. Just because most of the time, they're going to have some kind of level 4 Pendulum monster in the field, and then just like one of the random crappy guys like the level 3 or the level 5 Stargazer or Astrograph in a level 4 or Chronograph in a level 4, and that's just bad. Like, once you Cherries them, like, what are they making? Underclock? Like, so Cherries is like just downright the best card in this matchup. I would actually say that you can't even FTK once you get Cherries. Like, it'd be very hard because you can't summon that many monsters to get all those Venoms. And even if you, actually, I'm pretty sure you just can't FTK if you get Cherries. Ash.
You could, but you would just have to open like ridiculously broken. Like, it would be very unlikely, but it's possible.
Like unfeasible almost.
Yeah, unfeasible.
Ash is the worst card in this situation because really no matter what you're ashing, they just might have enough resources to block you out of the game. I recommend ashing the scale 0 and 13's effect to add Instant Fusion. I guess that's what you could do and you don't die, but the problem is then they still have their Pendulum summon and they're still going to make some kind of disruption. You're playing with 1 card less, and if you wait that long, and if you use it earlier and you don't wait that long and they still have the combo, then you still might die. So
Dragon Tron's good or Foolish.
Yeah, that's actually the best thing. If they Dragon Tron or Foolish and it's game 1, I would probably drop Ash, to be honest, just because either their board's a little bit worse, or you don't drop Ash and you get FTK'd. Like, it's just a risky game you have to play. You have to really read your opponents. You know, I did this like round 3 on my last event. I asked him, I was like, yeah, this FTK is so stupid. And my opponent says, oh yeah, I'm playing it, I know it sucks. I immediately asked that man's Foolish Burial. Yeah. Now these are just the juice against the FTK. Ogre is tricky in a way because if you ogre the Electromite and they have a really, really good follow-up, like they open like Astro, Chrono, Foolish Burial, you might still get FTK'd. But if you save Ogre for like one of the Venoms, then Zephyr Metaltron's effect will trigger because something it points to is destroyed, and then they add back Astrograph, and then you have 5 cards to kill them through Astrograph, and they still have all their resources. So Ogre's, I would say ogring Electrum is 90% the best option, because if they have the FTK still after that, then you're probably losing anyway because their hand was insane. And if they don't have the FTK after that, it means they can't do anything else after the Electrum dies, so you have a fighting chance. What do you think about that, TopTierYugioh?
I think that's true to an extent. It's just hard trying to figure out when you want to use Ogre. Like, when they summon Electromite, you don't know what they're playing. The real question is whether or not you Ogre it. And I think in a lot of cases, you have to sort of take that bet. Because even if they're not playing FTK, and again, you don't know it, yeah, they're just going to blow you out, and you're going to be holding Ogre. So it's almost like you have to Ogre Electromite, but then once you know what they are playing, Ogring a Venom is one of the most surefire ways to ensure that you don't die. Because if you Ogre Electromite, it's early enough in their combo to where they could be holding like an Astrograph and then just make a second one and then continue to FTK you. But on the Venom, they're only playing 2 Venoms, and so getting rid of one of them pretty much means they can't kill you unless they have like Monster Reborn or something, which is highly unlikely. And while they could use Metaltron to put it back in the extra deck, that depends on them doing the combo that way, because sometimes you try to burn before even summoning Metaltron, and so if they were to be doing it that way, it could be more dangerous for them. So that could be a good idea for you. So ogring Electromite is probably better game 1, and then games 2 and 3 you want to ogre the Venom if possible. But also remember that you want to ogre the Venom's first effect to copy Nightingale. You don't want to ogre the effect to burn, because if you try to ogre the effect to burn, at that point it's unaffected by card effects, so you'll just die. And so yeah.
Valor is also an interesting one, because if they're playing the FTK, you want to Valor the second Venom they make. At that point, all they have is like 2 Venoms and like Metaltron, and you're just in a really good position. However, if they're not playing the FTK and you hold Valor, what are you Valoring after Electrum? They're gonna just start making all these crazy plays, and you're just gonna get blown out, and with this dead Valor in your hand. So in game 1s, it's just, you have to really read your opponent and see the way they're playing. Like, a lot of engines play Darkwurm, and if you're not sure, I mean, just try asking your opponent. Sometimes they'll tell you. I know it sounds crazy, but I mean, Yu-Gi-Oh is like half psychology. And then, I mean, sometimes it's just clear as day. Like, if you start seeing, like, they could be a scrub, and if they Darkwurm and they search the 13 scale instead of the 0 scale, the only reason you're playing this card is if you're searching its infusion, because this card's terrible. Like, if it's in the scale, you can't Pendulum Summon anything unless you control no monsters. So if you just see this really early, then that makes Ogre and Valor just so much safer. Like, you know what you're doing. Like, you're gonna Ogre Valor at like the precise time, and then like the game's in the bag.
I think this is an important part where mind gaming and the mental game really become important, because depending on how you read your opponent, you can really decide when the best time to use your hand traps are and whether or not they're playing the FTK. And again, Alen made a really good point, and a lot of times you can just ask them, and even if you don't ask directly, you can ask indirect questions that will give you information on your opponent's deck. Like, again, you could say, hey, how was your last round? And then they'll say something, and you say, oh man, I got FTK'd by that stupid deck. And depending on how they react, like, they might be like, oh yeah, like he said, oh, I'm playing that deck. Or they might be like, oh, that deck's stupid. Or just something that really gives you sort of a hedge towards it. Or if they're honest enough, they might tell you how their previous rounds went, and if they played against it, you could say like, oh, how'd you beat it? And they say, I reincarnation the instant fusion. At that point, you're like, okay, I'm playing Trickstars, and that gives you other information. Even though you're not playing against FTK, it can give you information on whatever you're playing against.
But that's like unlikely to happen. You have to, most of the time you just have to make a good read. And I mean, it happens. There have definitely been games where I ogred the Electrum, and then my life points were 0 before I drew a card. Like, it happens. You can't always be right. But hopefully this video can help you guys with these regionals coming up, because today is Sunday, and and there hasn't been a ban list, so I'm thinking we're going to see this FTK for at least until April, right? They said no sooner than April.
Yeah.
So at least till April, we're going to be seeing Venom inflicting 4,000 points of damage. So yeah, if you guys have any questions, just drop them in the comments. We'll try to answer them. TopTierYugioh signing out.